everyone. Good afternoon. This is Bob Healey with Prelude Solutions. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to join our webinar today. The other folks you see on the screen, I'll give them an intro in one moment. What I wanted to do first was just give a quick, 90-second, 60 to 90-second overview of Prelude Solutions, who we are, what we do, and then transition into our friends at CBTS, which are going to talk about business value with AI. So thank you everyone for joining today. We greatly appreciate it. So quick overview on Prelude Solutions. We help organizations really take the larger scope of telecom and the technology and optimize the services that they have, right? So think about internet, phone service, collaboration tools, cellular, contact center software, phone systems, all that fun stuff. And we put together a full inventory of all services and do an assessment. And from that assessment comes an optimization. And typically, we're able to save organizations over 30% of their annual spend. Once we do that, we then help with that found budget, look for areas to upgrade technology or improve services with the technology that they currently have. And when it comes to procuring new services, we utilize a comprehensive market summary. I'll touch upon that in a moment, that really evaluates the market and takes into consideration the organization's needs, the outcomes they want to get to, all the considerations around that service or that product, and help them through the procurement process, inclusive of the contract negotiations. And then with services from Prelude, we do donate a portion of our revenue, whether it's one time from our optimization or recurring revenue from services. We do donate a portion of that to one of probably 10 organizations that are in our CARES network. And here on this slide, you can see just some of the services on the left that we're able to help organizations A, assess and optimize, but also B, source upgrades or new services in these areas. And since 2020, Prelude has helped our client base source services from 78 unique providers, CBTS being one of them. All right, so Prelude has a very agnostic approach with no predetermined outcomes when we go into an engagement. And one of those areas that we really focus on is the bottom left here, where you see AI readiness and AI services. And that's what we're going to talk about today, and the business advantage of how we can utilize AI. So I want to introduce Matt Douglas from CBTS. And as we make this transition, Matt, maybe you can just talk a little bit about, what makes an AI project successful, or
Sure.
What are the reasons why people stumble or AI projects fail?
Well, that's exactly what we want to kind of hopefully share here today. Well, I do have with me Justin Grieshop and Matt Madden. Both are kind of leaders in our AI practice. And so we want to go through some of the things we've learned and some of the things we can share there. Before I start any slides, I do want to tell you we're offering a free AI readiness assessment. So it's a one-day, basically paid engagement. We're doing it for free for a member here of the team, for Prelude's customers out there. So at the end of this presentation, Prelude's going to be sending out a recording of today's presentation and then a link to register for that. So one of you guys will get this free one-day AI readiness assessment. So kind of talking about CBTS, first I want to tell you a little bit about who we are and then how we got in this AI journey, because it's very similar to what I think you guys as customers or prospects are going through. We've been delivering managed services basically for the last 20 years. Really focusing on best-of-breed solutions out there, and how do we help take those best-of-breed solutions, deploy those, and help customers manage and co-manage those things over the life of the solution. Well, that landscape has just exploded with AI tools, right? Even before we started doing any kind of agentic AI work or AI kind of, data consulting, these kinds of things, we saw a lot of these pillars delivering AI-enabled tool sets in there, whether it was on contact center, security is exploding, et cetera. So basically our journey in this AI journey is us being able to help customers with AI-enabled tools, and now our own AI solutions that we're going to talk about today. So Bob, you kind of set up the thing first, is what have we seen out there and what has made successful AI engagements, kind of what's the difference between a success and a failure? So Justin, you've spent a lot of time in our world, getting ready for that AI journey, getting data ready, deciding how we're going to succeed, and then also helping customers succeed or sometimes stumble there a little bit. Talk a little bit about this slide and kind of what you've seen out there and what's the difference between a success and a failure on the AI front?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And that's a great question. There's a lot of hype, as everyone's aware, around AI. There's a lot of confusion in really how to engage with it because AI as a topic is actually many things. And I think this is where a lot of organizations have struggled, is because AI can mean so many things and does mean so many things depending on the technology stack.
The workloads, the technology stacks, yep.
That's absolutely correct. And so the organizations that are succeeding with AI are actually the ones who aren't following the hype. They're focused on business basics. They're focused on the processes and value delivery that they are pursuing for their customers. And they're working on stripping out the friction in those processes as they exist today. So they're getting better at their core business activities and focusing AI not on the hype, not on dreamware, but instead on transforming their business and how they're doing business today, focused on the activities they're performing already.
I've heard both in presentations, both you and Matt, I've heard you guys talk about focusing on the high friction transactions in a business, right? What are those transactions that take a lot of manpower, that are difficult, a lot of steps, and can AI help do that? We talked about, Matt, the fact that we do these AI readiness assessments, right? They're a
Right.
full one day where we kind of talk about the art of the possible, I think, in the morning, and in the afternoon you kind of go through and start to look at some of that low-hanging fruit. But talk about what you've seen with customers as they try and figure out, what parts they want to attack first.
Yeah, it's really important to get grounded in what it can and can't do when you're just starting with something like an AI assistant, like Copilot or Gemini, for example. Or when you start to think about something maybe a little more complex, like an agent. But when we do readiness assessments, it's helpful to get everybody grounded on the same page. We're speaking the same language because there's a lot of confusion about like what really is an agent or what really is. And if we bringing that clarity really helps. So then you can start from a point of, now, when we talk about the business problems that are top of mind, those priorities, you're grounded in a sense of what's realistic, what's not, and it starts to cut through that hype very quickly because we can help clarify at that point as a partner to our clients or to our partners as well, and internally help clarify, is this workflow really a good fit for agentic automation? Is it a good fit for somebody to just learn how to leverage an LLM to do that AI assistant and so on? So we're seeing a lot of that, and the progress really builds from there.
That was a big thing for me, even as we had the AI journey in CBTS, learning the differences between what Copilot might do for me or where in the business I might be interested in building an agentic AI, basically building a virtual human to do this kind of work. So
Right.
I think it's right. Meeting with customers, helping them understand what are some of the tool sets out there, and then what are the high friction problems they have in their business that you might want to attack first. Because just a CEO or a CFO or CTO saying we're going to AI our entire business and change everything we do, that's not the right way to attack these kinds of things. And I think you've said earlier, meeting a customer where they are, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the big things when we meet with somebody is, let's understand your business in depth as much as we can. What are those high friction areas? And what are the either AI tools like Copilot, or what are the possibilities where agentic AI solutions might be built?
Well, and I think what you just said is really important, Matt, because I think that's a big differentiator with CBTS, and a lot of these conversations are shaping up as technology conversations,
Sure.
but in reality, these are business conversations. But by focusing the technology on the business and not the pursuit of AI in and of itself, what you actually are focusing on is the real ROI that you're after. And that's where CBTS, I think, plays as a very strong partner. And we meet our customers where they are by following very disciplined approaches to that.
And anybody who's listening here as well, feel free to put any kind of questions you've got there. I think, Bob, you're kind of watching the questions there. So as you see anything, we're happy to respond to anything that comes up. So,
Yep, please. Thank you, Matt.
no problem. All right, so let's talk a little bit then, if we're talking to customers and we're trying to help them on this journey. Matt, this is actually a slide that you've used. I've seen in presentations about the idea that if I'm going to get in a car and I live in Indianapolis, if I'm going to get a car and go from Indianapolis to San Diego, let's say, what are the things I've got to do, right? And so I kind of talk a little bit about this analogy of fueling the car, the AI car that you've used.
100%. Well, you're not just going to put anything in your engine. Let's say you're starting that trip, and the reality is, because AI is so exciting, we want to get to that potential quickly. As a customer, as a consumer of AI, it's easy to want to start there, but we often find for many of our clients, and if you're feeling this way out there, no, you're not alone. You're not so far behind that you can't catch up, but many of them are at a state where they quickly realize, and we help them realize, your data might not quite be ready for AI.
It's a big issue. I want to
Oftentimes
talk
it's
about the
not.
data. Yep,
So,
keep going.
I mean, and that's it. So data quality, we need the right fuel for that AI engine, but a lot of times
But before you go there, though,
Sure.
this idea of data quality, one of the things that as I've kind of peeled this onion back to try and understand, is that some of that data is kind of almost ready. Like when you think about information that's in SQL databases, information that's in spreadsheets. You used the word tabular one time when you were doing training for us, Matt.
Sure.
That data is kind of ready to be put into an AI agent, if you would. An AI agent can kind of consume that. But this unstructured data that sits in my business, if I'm a law firm and I've got, tens of thousands of text docs or Word docs, these kinds of things, there's a lot of corporate information in there, but I've got to figure out a way to get that data vectorized, if you would, and ready to be consumed if you're going to build an agentic AI. So data, I know you spent a lot of time in our business, so talk a little bit about what we've had to do to get our data ready to even build some of these new tools.
Yeah, and I might actually use the car analogy because I really like this. A lot of organizations have struggled with data for a long time. It's been a pain point for a long time, and it didn't become less important as AI began to take over the market.
More, yeah.
Right. It's similar to the car. With a lot of organizations spend their time looking through the rear view mirror, right? That they manage through hindsight, right? Data readiness is going from hindsight to looking through the front window and then eventually turning that into a GPS, right? So as your data matures, what you're able to do with that data matures as well, and how you're able to leverage it with AI changes as well. So the goal in data readiness is not to fix every data problem inside of your organization. It's the goal of data readiness is to focus on the business critical activities that drive ROI for your business, that drive value for your customer, that drive top line and bottom line results, and focusing your efforts on making sure that that data is in a state that is as ready as possible for agentic solutions.
So let me state again what I think you said, is understanding where do we think we're going to go? What are the tools, the business problems we want to solve? Then looking at our data and figuring out how do we make that data available to those AI tools.
Absolutely.
And it needs massaging. I know we're a big Fabric shop, right? Microsoft
Absolutely, yeah.
Fabric, and you spend a lot of your time making sure that data is kind of, I don't know the right word here, but correlated and put into Fabric properly, right, to make available.
Right, and getting it structured well is the difference between struggling and succeeding. And the challenge I think that some organizations have run into is they've gone into data initiatives before. Sometimes they span historically, maybe they span 3-5 years, massive data warehousing efforts. The tooling has evolved significantly, even in the last few years.
Fabric's changed quite a bit, right?
We did in 3 months what took us 3 years.
Yep.
Right. And that we did that with Microsoft Fabric. We've just done that with a very large services provider as well. We have a really forward-thinking CIO, and we're working with him on modernizing his data environment.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been able to take years and years of a fractured data foundation and modernize it in a period of a few months.
Use Fabric as that data lake that then enables whatever I want to do on the AI side.
Yeah, he has accelerated his organization's success in ways that will be felt for years by partnering with CBTS and getting that data foundation in order. And he's already moving on to AI use cases, something that would have seemed completely out of possibility just after a few months because of how proactive and thoughtful in his leadership he was.
So Matt, I kind of interrupted you here, so we got off a little on the data side, so keep going.
No, that's a great tie-in. I mean, for that client that you mentioned and everyone in general, as we're talking about the importance of what we just spoke to, you can't get away from your cloud environment as well as your on-prem environment.
Where are these solutions going to run?
Together, exactly.
They got to run in my customer premise. They got what cloud they got to run in.
Maintainability, reliability, and a lot of people got in the cloud many years ago and haven't necessarily modernized their cloud posture even for things like AI landing zones. And so it's all part of this connected picture that we're talking about here. And back to the analogy, obviously we're big fans leveraging it here, but there's a lot of reasons why. So.
Yeah, and
Matt,
so that's one of the. Go ahead. Yes, absolutely, Bob.
We do have a question that kind of piggybacks, I think, off of what was just described. I'm going to ask this question a little bit more fuller because it was more of a statement. Can you talk about it in the Q&A? But we talked about data readiness and making data available for AI. Can you talk about the guardrails and the security that have to be put in place to make certain data unavailable to the AI tools?
Go ahead. I'm gonna let you answer it. I want to put something on top. So either one of you
Sure.
take that.
Yeah, I'll take first pass. That has to be a key part of that initial conversation from day one. And a lot of it does, and that's often where we're saying, hey, let's pump the brakes. Not just is your data ready, but is your security posture ready for AI, which includes that data, but includes all of your infrastructure and considerations around the use case, the resources, the staffing, et cetera. So we have a number of services that we've stood up to really help pair with any data modernization effort, cloud modernization effort around AI. From proactive red teaming on that AI system to assessments ahead of an engagement that really help us get a better sense of your current security posture and how it stands up against frameworks like the NIST AI risk management framework, for example. So a lot to consider there.
Yeah, one of the things though, isn't it true that when we talk about data readiness, getting data ready, don't I actually have to go through and even curate and transform some of that data? I've got to redact certain information I want. I got to tag files a certain way as they go into Fabric, et cetera. So part of that data readiness, I think, is not only deciding what quote data, structured and unstructured data I want, but then I do have to spend some time going through and cleaning that data to make sure that I can put the right security policies on. Is that a correct statement? Or
yeah, you
Absolutely.
You need to be thinking about security first and foremost. That's it, and that is an upfront conversation, not a later.
So how we organize and tag that is part of this big thing with security. The other thing I want to mention too, the security question, we now are seeing big players like Palo and Cisco who are designing security firewalls. We think of firewalls that, we put so many firewalls in front of our data center, in front of our stores and locations, et cetera. But if you think about an agentic AI, kind of this entity out there in the cloud, basically putting a firewall wrapper around it as that agentic AI takes input from a user, tries to go to an LLM and does something, comes down and makes, RAG calls, information calls down into my data, that this firewall then is also about how do I make sure that I'm not, I've got the right permissions and I'm not putting out sensitive data, et cetera. So we're seeing this whole new category of AI firewalls out there too in the cloud. Is that
100%? Yeah,
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, and to that end, I mean, if you're a Microsoft shop, how are you leveraging Purview? Are you leveraging that today for the many things that they're rapidly including in that ecosystem for sensitivity labeling and from your policy management? So a lot to cover there. It's to really get your security posture ready for AI in the same realm that to get your data estate and your cloud estate ready for AI, but it is all one connected picture. So.
Yep. All right, cool, fantastic. I wanted to talk a little bit about how we kind of, because our job as a service provider, right, is to deliver managed services. It's also deliver kind of application development and security professional services around that. Talk about the data, et cetera. We've kind of put this into 5 pillars. We call our CBTS Forge offerings. And we've already kind of talked about AI consulting, right? A lot of our time is spent meeting with a customer and helping them understand really where they want to go with it in their AI journey, identifying what those high friction areas are, right? Talked about data readiness, right? A lot of work that we do with customers on helping them curate and do this transformation and deciding what data lake tools they want to use, right? Mm-hmm. And then this kind of idea on the generative AI, building agentic AI in particular, that's kind of one of the hot topics now, right? So talk a little bit, either one of you guys, talk about what we do with helping customers, once they've identified, okay, this is a high friction area, I want to attack this, how do we help them build some kind of agentic AI solution?
And then I have a follow-up question to that, Matt, from the audience as well.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
So beginning with data readiness, right? The information in your business is what drives good decision making, right? And what data readiness is ultimately about is structuring data so that good decisions can be made. That's actually what analytics is, right? Analytics is getting the right information, the right people at the right time so they can make the right decision and get to the right outcome. That's all it is. And so with agents, they need to be able to follow that same path as well. Data readiness is about getting the information into a state that those decisions can be made quickly and then they can be made in an organized and predictable manner. Yeah. Yep. But right now it's humans. There's a lot of human in the loop activity going on, and that'll remain for a while. But the eventual state of this is agents will be making these decisions, and they will be making decisions atop enriched data foundations. That's why you hear people stress the criticality of getting your data into a ready
We talk about
state.
human in the loop. One of the examples I talk about is imagine a law firm. Let's say it's a 500-person law firm, and I'm getting 1,000 emails a month coming in related to the work that we do as a legal firm. The people are starting to build these agents that can do some of that triage and answer some of those emails automatically. Some of those emails, though, need to go back to a human in a loop for approval, for changing wording, et cetera. Some of those simply are never going to be able to be handled by an agent today and need to be completely handled by a human. So this human in a loop is part of that process too, and that's got to be in that design from the very beginning. So we help customers with that generative AI, that agentic AI solution, how to build that, how to get that data ready.
Yep.
And Bob, you had something on that?
Yeah, it's kind of a two-part question when it comes to unstructured data and the cleanliness of it. Can you just talk a little bit further about, how with confidence we can know that it's precise, right? If it's loaded into a vector, how do we know, and what's the process to know that, it is protected and it is with precision?
Yeah, so that's a big question and it's a great question, and there's a couple of answers to it, but I'm going to keep it simple. So a lot of the early mistakes that were made when AI initially launched was a lot of enterprises simply turned it on and let it loose within their environment, and they found that the results they were getting back were very hit or miss, unreliable, hallucinations. We've all read the stories. The difference between being successful in in your implementation and being unsuccessful when it comes to structured data is actually getting that data into a pre-ready state for the AI. At least in the current state, you want to be front loading the information to the AI so it knows what to act on. You don't want to be giving it raw information. You want to actually enrich it, similar to how you're enriching metrics today.
Is that process called ETL? Is that the extraction, transformation, and loading, or am I screwing that up?
Well, ETL is how you move that data into the foundations, right? ETL and ELT will give you that data foundation. It's really the transformation atop that data. That's where the enrichment really comes into play. That's where you begin to blend data sources. That's where you begin to create new information by looking at how it's correlated across systems. And it's really that layer that a lot of organizations left out. It's that step.
So that question then of how do I get this data ready? You're saying I've got unstructured data. I do have to go through it. I've got to put some data scientist work to it, some machine learning to it, to be able to kind of take that, extract it, transform it, and load it in the proper place. But I've got to have some humans in the loop to figure out what parts of that data I want to expose and what I don't.
Yeah, and simply put, if you have a reporting environment today, a lot of that reporting layer that you're using for your analytics already is the right place to start, right? You're trying to get data into an enriched state so that AI can act on top of it. You don't want to be working from the unprocessed data. You want to be working from the processed data layer.
Well, we've got some smart people who can help with that, Bob. So in the interest of time, we got 6 minutes left here, but go ahead, Bob. Yep.
Yeah, I got two other questions.
Sure.
One is a follow-up on this topic and one is a transition. So I'll ask both questions and maybe you can answer them in that order. Follow-up is the precision and recall percentage. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then the next question is the classic buy or build, right? So you can just talk a little bit about the process you would go through to help an organization determine when do they buy versus when do they build themselves.
Let's go with the precision question again. Ask that again. Give me the precision question again.
Yeah, so it's simply what is your precision and recall percentage?
How does that factor in? So precision and recall is something if we've got like a supervised machine learning use case where that's appropriate versus largely we've been talking in the context of AI around LLMs, large language models, and agents, which are very much a focus for enterprise. But certainly as a benchmark of how accurate is this predictive model, that's something that I know, Justin, your team's leveraging as you're working and you're getting, do I have the right training data? Am I doing the right, when I'm testing the output, when that model that I trained is now inferring, what does that precision recall picture look like? That's certainly important. And it's just one of many metrics that you probably want to dig into as it's relevant there. So hopefully that helps. It's certainly, if the use case warrants, a model where that is going to be something that we're going to look at more heavily as an evaluation benchmark, then that should be top of mind. That's something that we would be consulting with our clients around.
Yeah, got it. Thank you. And then the classic buy versus build.
Yep. Yeah, talk to that because we've been through that, right? We've had to decide what parts of Microsoft tools we're going to use compared to what parts we're going to do on our own. So talk about that buy versus build. Yep.
Yeah. So there's a couple things I'd say to that. There's going to be a continual push from OEMs and ISVs to enrich AI capabilities in their
the products.
Yeah.
And we see that in the security side. Like we're a big Palo shop. Palo has just added massive amount of AI security tools in there. We're seeing that on the network side. We're a big Cisco Meraki, Fortinet, Juniper shop, and we're seeing more and more AI ops come in there. So the OEMs are adding AI-powered tools into these offerings.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a deep conversation we can have here, but keeping it simple. I would say anytime you are looking at a capability that can exist entirely natively within the platform that you're working in, use that, right? Buy. Anytime you're looking at how do I cross-correlate information across systems, how do I really get the most value out of my data? That is where you're going to probably want to build, because most platforms are not ready to work with other platforms in a way that is going to allow you to optimize the value you're extracting from your data. So anytime you're looking at multiple platforms, anytime you're looking at multiple technology stacks, that's when you have to seriously think about building versus buying.
But does it also, if I'm talking about building agentic AI, let's say, does it also come into question of, am I going to use kind of a platform like Microsoft or AWS to build this agentic AI solution? Or am I going to need to build something completely in my own data center or my own edge? We're seeing more and more talk about kind of edge LLMs and those kinds of things, large language models and small language models. So I think even that build versus buy, once you decide we need an agentic AI solution to solve this business problem, this high friction business problem, then we do have to decide, are we going to put that in somebody's cloud with their tools, or is this going to require a complete custom build?
Yeah, and this problem and business dynamics are really going to drive the question of the approach, right? And and so that's what I love about that.
We've got experience in either one of those places.
Right,
yep,
exactly.
Absolutely.
From the edge to the cloud.
We got a couple of minutes left here. Oh, excuse me. I did want to talk about, again, our approach. And I think this is, again, when we talk to our customers, we've been through the same journey internally. We're a 1.3 billion, couple thousand employee company. We do, we have a lot of data on our own. We have a lot of problems. We have a huge managed service business. And so we've got a lot of opportunity for AI to be able to transform not only our experience internally, but our customers' experience. And so we've had this kind of approach to this life cycle. So talk a little bit about, if you would, about when we're meeting with a customer, how we take this life cycle approach to work with them. You can go ahead and take that first, Matt, if you want to.
Sure. Well, going back to those pillars we were looking at, it does really start with, let's get aligned on where you're at in your journey, your priorities, and that usually gets us to a path of better understanding your use cases, really understanding what makes sense here, helping you build the roadmap. So that's that advisory stage. And then that often ties directly into that necessary next step of tier 2 that we see here, data and infrastructure readiness, right? Back to what we were talking about earlier. We've identified that maybe parts of your data or a lot of your data isn't ready for this use case that you want to have AI drive value within. Let's help you get there, help you get the right pieces in place, and then help you partner in that journey from a deployment perspective, bringing the right smart hands to get the data transformed as needed, get the data infrastructure and the data estate modernized, the cloud modernized, the security posture hardened and resilient for this use case and more moving forward, not just looking at one. And so I kind of jumped into tier 4 there, but how do you scale this securely is baked into really that whole journey, because we need to be thinking about that from tier 1 all the way to post deployment. But hopefully that's helpful from a quick run through.
And again, Justin, you'd said this before we started. This is about this idea of we meet customers where they are.
Absolutely.
And so they may not need all of this part of this life cycle, but how could we help and where can we meet them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Bob, anything else? We got just a minute left here.
Yeah, no, I want to thank you for the time, the information, the presentation. Thank you. It's very helpful and very interesting. I appreciate it. For our audience, we will send out a link with this recording.
And registering for that AI assessment. Yep.
And the form for the free AI assessment. And then separately, it'll take us a week or so to put this together. We'll also send out a 1, maybe 2-page kind of ebook summary of today as well. So it's a little more condensed. But Matt, Justin, and Matt, thank you. Greatly appreciate the time and the information. And I wish everyone a great afternoon. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate being part of your ecosystem. So thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining.